think we've got it. There's that. There's that. I will still have to tinker with things. Alright. What's up, Ron? Welcome to the stream, dude. So far Thursday still works, I think. Although it may change again. Who knows? We shall see. By the way, if Scott Bolter comes on or sees this later, he made this for me. This thing is dangerous. I poured a whole thing of coffee in this like an hour ago and it's still like really hot. I burned myself. Yeah, keeps things cold for like a day or two, keeps things hot for even longer. It's just insane. Getting there. Good morning, Eric. That coffee's coming in tomorrow that I ordered that you suggested, by the way. Yeah, I've been up for a while. I just dropped Brian's Retic Jr. off at Davis for an appointment, so I've been up for a bit, driving it back. And I've got a buddy coming out today, my friend who I do all my photography with, and he's driving out in a bit, and we're going to see if we can't get another black glass session going for a bit today. So we'll see what happens there. And what else? Yeah, I will let you know. Morning, Terry. Okay, yeah, so hopefully we'll be doing some more black glass later. I did find out Junior is doing well. He hates me with every injection, but he takes it pretty well. He's pretty tolerant. He's going in for a CT scan right now, so we'll see what happens. And I'll have to go pick him up later today probably, or tomorrow, depending on how he comes out of anesthesia. If any of you have ever worked with reptiles to a point where you've had to have one go under anesthesia for a procedure or anything, you know that it takes reptiles a long time to come out of that and wake back up, especially turtles and tortoises. So there is a chance that if it takes him a long time to sort of come to after his procedure, that he may just need to stay the night there. So we'll see. But yeah. Good morning, Chris. What else? So before I get into like what I was thinking would be a cool thing to talk about today, I, being a limited space individual and not a large organization, warehouse company, whatever, have to be mindful of projects and what I pick up and thinking long term. And sometimes when you pick up a new project or decide to get into something, it just doesn't work with your style of keeping or your space or whatever reason, right? There's a whole lot of things. And after having them for a year and a half, the Madagascar giant hognose that I have, I think they got to go. So as much as I like the species, they don't share the sentiment. They absolutely hate me, which is fine. But one of them likes to fling poo and urates at me every time I try to take him out for cleaning or anything of the sort. They all eat frozen thawed. One of them will actually take it from the tongs. The other ones, you just got to leave it in there. But I don't have currently or in the near future space to put the mad hogs in either their own cages or one big communal cage like I was planning on. So I've been talking to a couple folks about sort of what the market dictates their pricing at, but I am going to try and sell my reverse trio of Madagascar giant hognose. Ideally, somebody who wants to keep them long term and try and establish them, breed them, keep them for a while and not break them up. That would be the preferred situation. I don't know if anybody out there even cares about them as much as I did, but there's a couple folks they just don't have the space, and I understand that. So if any of y'all want some angry, hissy, urate flinging, but totally awesome, unique Madagascar giant hognose and have the space, like one big 6-foot cage for all of them, or a couple small enclosures. They're in 41 quart tubs now, which is fine. The problem is they're so messy in this right now being their wet season. They're destroying their water daily because of limited space, and they're just getting my room filthy because they're literally spraying dirt out there, and every time I open their enclosures, there's dirt on the ceiling. So ideally, I would experience this and move them into bigger cages, so on and so forth, but I don't have the time, space, money, or the cages to do so. So if anybody out there watching this is like, hey, I want a reverse trio of Madagascar giant hognose, you know where to find me, or if you know anybody. Anyway, just throwing that out there. Now, to sort of segue into what I was going to talk about, is I guess it's on the same thread because it takes a little bit of planning to figure out things long term, and obviously some things do work and sometimes they don't, right? So we're right around the corner from hatching season. People are having eggs being laid. The spring breeders are getting their last locks in, but it is definitely a late season, which is not unusual, I suppose. But what I'm finding more is a lot of folks are contacting me and reaching out saying, hey, I want to get into carpet pythons. I don't know much about them. And then, I get a variety of different questions, and it happens every year, and it's great because to me it means the Morelia community is growing and expanding a bit, and not everybody is going to stay in it that joins in. Some people will just be like, these things aren't for me, or I do prefer a smaller species or a more manageable species or what have you. Everybody has their preference, right? So I'll get a snake out and we'll talk about it in that way. And you're in shed. Are you in shed? Sort of. Why is there only shed? What about you? Gosh, all of you? This whole project is in shed right now. Oh well. Close enough. Alright. Enough screwing around. So all three of the individuals I was going to pick from are in shed, naturally. But this is one of my het exanthic tiger coastals. And the reason I wanted to bring him out was because I had been thinking about this project for a while, especially when the exanthic stuff became more available and affordable to folks like me. I've always had an affinity for tigers, so I knew that there was already some feature there that I'd really like to work with, more. And so I went and invested in a few animals like this, and created a group, right? I created a project, so to speak. And most people, when they get into Morelia for the first time, they gravitate towards just what they see, what they like, or what's available. And then afterwards, and they're like, oh, wait, you mean these are different subspecies? These are full species different? You mean some people wouldn't like crosses? And so then people start learning about the pure versus cross opposing views and things like that. And it's usually after they've acquired a few animals or bred a few things, just willy-nilly, and then they find themselves sitting on a lot of babies not going anywhere, and just sort of learning lessons the hard way, which isn't bad, but when you've got animals that you can't sell and they're just sitting in your spot, they're not getting, the care they really deserve. So most people will figure it out and kind of right the ship, so to speak. But if you're thinking about getting into Morelia, think about what the subspecies are. What does the carpet python community sort of prefer, lean towards? What's, the hot topic button? What's sort of like taboo? What isn't? You can definitely do things your own way, but it's good to make educated decisions because a lot of times people get a snake and then they realize, oh, this didn't make sense. I shouldn't have picked up this, undocumented IJ off some table at a show and tried to breed it to my bred live because I didn't know any better at the time. And then now you go and sell one of those animals and, it just becomes harder and harder to trace back what they are. And what we're doing is perpetuating a cycle of sort of undocumented, potentially integrated mutt sort of no-name animals, but those are the ones that are going to be found by new keepers first because they're on a table for cheap somewhere and somebody's like, oh, I've always wanted a carpet python, and they see the breeder with the table full of new babies, somebody who's going to be able to like explain things to you, give you the time of day, and give you a proper intro to Morelia, but they're a little bit more expensive because they know the value of what they're doing, and so you end up buying this sort of thing that's been handed off over and over and you don't know what it is. And it looks like this, but you can't be sure because you can't even tell who bred it anymore because it's so far down the daisy chain of like hands that it's, passed through. So, but I have been really impressed because a lot of people have just been coming to me and asking me questions like, hey, what would, make sense with this? And what sort of things are out there? Are there recessives? Are there morphs? Is morphs the only thing? Because that's the other thing carpet pythons have is localities and subspecies and things like that that are separate from morphs. You can incorporate them, but it's like an added layer. So although Morelia, are easy to keep and really wonderful, it's just another mental thing you got to think about. So when everybody's seeing photos of, babies hatching or babies at shows and things like that, spending time on Facebook, and you're just seeing all this new stuff, it's really pretty, it's really colorful. Like, pump the brakes, don't do the impulse buy, don't just grab whatever, because they're not like ball pythons. And the reason I pick on the ball python thing is because that's what people see first, right? They get into it because of ball pythons, and that's eventually going to lead them to branch out and learn about other things. But they've got this ball python sort of approach, which works for that animal because a ball python's a ball python. There's just really no variant, really. It's just morphs beyond that, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, it's just one of those things to like pay attention to. Shop wisely, pick an animal wisely. Think about what you really like, because ultimately you're either going to have that animal for a long time and be stoked on it, or you're going to have it for a short while and wish you had to, done it differently or something like that. But they're really rewarding. They're those Arctic tumblers or something else. That's impressive. Yeah, that was all I really had, was just actually try breeding, even if it's just a pair. Make sure it's something sensible so you have a good chance of people wanting those offspring. Just think about the long-term goal and the impact it has on people who might be buying or seeing you. I find a lot of folks are like, well, we all are. When we're learning about something new and the only source of information is X, we sort of take X at its word, and then that's like the baseline of our knowledge and information. And so that's where we start learning from. And so, I don't know. I'm in my own head right now. But, yeah. This is a really mellow, quiet stream, so that's kind of nice. I figured this would happen because it's a weekday. So we're still testing it out, and there is a chance that my schedule at work could change again. It could potentially put me on, we'll see. There's a lot up in the air at work right now. All right. Here's a rescue, so completely undocumented, but the owner's mother was going to let it loose outside. Eric, yeah, I actually was checking the incubator before I started this to see if maybe I'd get some eggs hatching on the stream, because the Papuan eggs are on day 54 right now, and they're like any day I would expect to see a little slit, some babies poking heads out. Um, Not really keen on cutting them. How's my defensive little girl coming along? She's not. She's evil. She hates everything. She's not progressing. um, she still bites the hook. She still acts like a just a 360-degree ball of hate. Just everything that moves is a target. Um, it's gonna take some time. I imagine it'll be, a thing where like maybe when she's older, I can start working with her in a big hook, and then maybe take her outside and let her experience interesting stimuli that doesn't require attacking. Then maybe we'll work on it. But for now, she's the devil reincarnate. I've actually named her Chernobyl because she literally destroys everything in her wake, like a bad nuclear outbreak. Yeah, she's super evil. The jungle maternal incubation is going really well. Those eggs are on, I think, yeah, today is day 16. And a few days ago, I pulled mom off of her clutch just to get a peek. And I took a quick photo, but the eggs look great. And what's interesting about that is they look just as good as eggs being perfectly artificially incubated, and they're experiencing a fluctuation in temperatures of about 7 degrees, throughout the day. So I'm starting to think about like, should artificial incubation now incorporate a fluctuation in temperatures? How are the tree pythons you got? I don't have any tree pythons. I used to have chondros. I got rid of them a couple years ago. I have Amazon tree boas though, and they're only one of them is pretty mellow. The rest of them like to try and bite at everything that moves too. It seems to be their thing. The nice thing is though, I've got these perches from specialty enclosure designs for the young ones. I can literally just pick up the whole perch with the animal on it, move it out of the way, do my cleaning, put it back, and no issue. The adults are in larger enclosures, so to move them around, I can just use hooks. I don't know. So it's my first time having a full season with adults, and I have paired them a few times. The female's still eating, but I know that's not necessarily unheard of. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be a few years before I figure those things out, I'm sure. Um, yeah, I do need to get one of those big vision racks with like it has like 5 really big tubs. That way I can just throw them all in one big thing, official thing to like sort of fine tune them and get to understand them a little bit better. For right now, I've got a trio of juvenile like yearlings that are growing up and raising. They're getting big. They're eating really well. So yeah. What's up, Ryan? Wouldn't eat, huh? I've never had any of my Amazon tree boas refuse a meal. Um, I feed mine like every other week, and I don't know. Maybe the little ones, like when they're that young. I will say that they don't digest as fast as some of my other snakes. I would see them still with, like they're digesting over by the heat after like 5 or 6 days of a small, decently sized meal. So maybe try spreading out your feeding and see if like giving them the extra week of fully digesting will spur some appetite growth. Eric, that's terrifying. That would make me a little nervous, but I actually have heard of something like that as well. Owen, the host of NPR, he'll never be let down for this, but he let a clutch go in the incubator that wasn't even plugged in, and they hatched like 100 days later. So yeah, they definitely can take a little bit of temperature fluctuation. I'm sure extremes are not good, and then obviously, water on eggs will prevent oxygen transfer, effectively drowning an embryo. So water isn't good for python eggs, but yeah, they can definitely take some temps. So the female in there, like I said, I've got the probe taped to the top of the nest box with the probe just sort of draped right on top of her egg cluster where she is. So it's not directly in the egg cluster, but I've been getting temperatures as low as like 85 point something in there, and as high as like 92. There was a day where it got 92 in there because we had a crazy heat spell. And actually, I think that was the day I checked on the eggs, and they were fine. But that was more on the high end. Typically, I'm seeing them stay around like between 86 and 90. So anywhere in that range. And that sort of makes sense with a lot of different approaches to incubation. I've heard a lot of people will shoot for a straight 90. Some people shoot for as low as like 87.5. They've got it really figured out with their incubator in their space. So there's definitely more than one way to do it as far as if you pick a constant temperature. But what I'm seeing is fluctuation roughly in 5 degrees. So maybe in theory what we could do with artificial incubation, if we find that there's some benefit down the road, of course, like if there's no difference, then there's no difference. But what if those fluctuations do quantifiably produce babies that hatch out more robust, bigger, eating better right off the bat? If I do this type of MI and documentation for years and years and years, and I collect all that data, and I find that the majority of the babies did come out larger, ate sooner, this and that, I could potentially do some more testing to see if that comes as a result of the fluctuation by then doing it artificially and seeing if over a lot of, baby pythons that the same results come out. I've always done a constant temperature with incubation thus far, and I've gotten great healthy babies. There's always seems to be one or so that's kind of weak, late start, finicky eater, something like that, one or two every clutch. So I'd be curious to see like if that sort of incident would decrease even more. So later, Eric. Have a good one. Will she move off them when the temps get too high? I don't see any evidence of her leaving the eggs, to be honest. I haven't seen her coming out other than there was a day where she did come out, but that was like right before she laid. I haven't seen her leave the eggs. She's got water right by the entrance, so effectively she could like just pull her head out and go back in without actually leaving the eggs. So yeah, I mean, if it got too hot, theoretically she would probably get off of them to let them cool down. But if it's an ambient thing, then I don't know. I'd have to do it a bunch more times to really see, because doing it once with one animal only gives me a small amount of experiences and behaviors I'm seeing. If I did it with every animal every year, that would be something different. I would get information about failed clutches, maybe mothers that don't incubate well, things like that. So lower temps affecting patterns on. Yeah, I have heard of that as well. I have heard of incubation issues resulting in sort of a freak phenotype result that isn't like anything you can control too much. But I don't know. I haven't experienced that personally, but I have heard of other people talking about it. So don't want to risk a clutch just to test that theory. Well, unfortunately, that's the only way you're really going to find out is to try different variables on clutches, right? To see what happens. Because if we want to really fine tune Python incubation and maybe unlock some secrets to some species that have harder to incubate or more sensitive eggs. This is one way to do it. One of the things that I found out about how challenging incubating eggs for flat-tailed tortoises, and this is a trip, is you incubate them at whatever temperature, like 82, 83, something like that for a while. And then there's a certain point where you actually have to drop the temperatures really cold for a short period of time, like a couple weeks, and then bring it back up. Like, that's what they need. How would we figure that out? Maybe somebody's incubator method would take some creative approach, I would think. So that's why I'm doing MI this year and gonna theoretically do it at least every year for as many clutches as I think will be, viable. So we'll see. But yeah, time will tell. Trial and error. Yep, that does make for some good information. Yeah, you could take a clutch and like let mom keep some and pull the others if you can get them apart. Or like if a female kicks out a bunch of eggs and only incubates some, see what happens with those. So yeah, incubation is tricky. It's fun, but there's a lot of cool stuff to figure out. It's definitely a science. So and quality and sound and all that stuff, I have to have over 1,000 subscribers, so they actually booted me from that ability. So if the picture quality is grainy and the audio is still kind of off and we're tinkering with it, it's because I'm doing it on my computer, which isn't top of the line. So it's relatively new, but it's not like all the bells and whistles new. Am I working with caramel stuff? Yeah. I actually have a pair of caramel adults that are from my friend Travis at Living Legless Reptiles, and all of his coastal stuff, well, almost all of his carpet stuff in general, comes from a lot of Nick Mutton stock. So got some good solid lineage on them, and they're 2015s. So the male she's definitely, the follicles have been growing. They're getting really big. She's been swelling, side rolling, but she did that last month and she's doing it again, but I haven't gotten any shed out of her. She's refused meals, so we'll see what happens, but hopefully get some caramel stuff this year of my own. How's Junior doing? I just dropped him off at UC Davis this morning. He's getting a CT scan to see what amount of infection is going on in his face, to figure out if they can take one of two approaches to eliminate some of that infected tissue while he's also undergoing an antibiotic regimen. So looking at super caramel zebra jags, stuff like that, like if you want to get all sorts of like Frankenstein-y on there, definitely adds a different look to it. 7th, so today's the 18th. So she's 22 days past her post-ovulatory shed, so she is due to drop eggs within the next 8 or so days, and then we'll start a 60-day countdown on incubating those. That'll be my first shot at not only making my own zebras, but even some super zebras, and I hope I get a few because I want to keep some super zebras. If anybody hasn't seen one, go look them up. They're just amazing, patternless, really, really cool. I actually have one down here. She's in shed. She belongs to my friends Terrell and April of Designer Exotics, but she's here on loan breeding because I've got an Axanthic zebra male, so trying to make some visual Axanthic super zebras. So we'll see what happens, and then maybe throw some tiger, who knows what, I don't know. We'll see where that project goes, but next year will be the year that hopefully this female will want to go. She didn't want to go this year. She's moved up here last year with me, and so females take some time to settle in when you move them around as adults. And I think she's 2014, so she's got plenty of age. That should be hatching this week. And any more eggs that may or may not arrive in the next week or two here. Probably post that stuff up first on like Instagram, the social media type stuff, not the YouTubes. The YouTubes. Sound like an old man. Anyway, I'm gonna skedaddle and get out of here and go get something to eat and get some snakes cleaned and prepped for a black glass photo shoot. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Again, between now and next week, if anybody has questions they want to talk about in particular, fire away. Let me know. And yeah, until next time, love, peace, and chicken grease.